What's up, everybody? It's me, it's PLD, and I'm here at Scoundrels of the Force with two excellent guests. One's more of a brother that's here every week. I can't get rid of him. I tried kicking him out once. He
Yep.
just kept coming back. I found him on the stoop. I finally let him in. I gave him a guest room. We'll go from there. That's Matty Gutter. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, mate. A little bit of a hangover from last night, but shit's all good. I'm here.
I love the
We're,
sound
we're,
of that.
we're good to go.
Are we ever really truly good to go? I don't know about that, but that's okay. We have a real guest who's never been on at least Scoundrels of the Force. He's been on PLD Products, I believe, one of our long rambling general nights at some point or another. Go for hours upon hours, but
Slash morning.
slash morning, exactly, very true. Mr. John Goetz, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, doing well.
Well, this is the show where we talk about, Star Wars. My favorite subject ever, I think, at this point. But usually we talk about all these different things we've seen a million times. We went through episode 3, episode 1, episode 2, A New Hope. Bring up all these things we've talked about millions of times, millions of places. And now we get to talk about something new, which is always a little bit more exciting to me. So I think we should just get right into the ideas. We finally got the Bad Batch. It's been coming around for quite a bit. Maddie, what were your thoughts about before we saw them? What were you at this point? Were you looking forward to? What were you looking forward to? Did it get there? Did it get there for you? Just so overall thoughts without getting into details.
Overall thoughts, and it 100% did get there, was this looks like Star Wars A-Team. I love the A-Team growing up. I love Star Wars growing up. Star Wars plus A-Team, happy Matty.
There you go. There you go. Real quick there. Hi, Dad. As
Hey there.
always. And maybe, Pat, I have the right kind of candy. You just come in there. You sit in the back. We'll be good. You'll be fine. You'll have a
Want
good
some
time.
candy?
I like how he said lure me in, like Star Wars lore.
I know. I like that too. I was like, that's a good. I'm here for a good pun anytime. So, John, what were your thoughts? I never actually got to talk to you really in deep about were you excited about this show going in? What did you think going on?
Well, so as far as like the Star Wars animated shows, I only watched Clone Wars once and Rebels once.
Okay.
But I really liked season 7 of Clone Wars, including the Bad Batch episodes. So I already liked the characters, and the fact that I remembered all their names after just a couple episodes, I was like, these guys are pretty endearing, I think. We can do a series on these guys. But I didn't know what time period it was going to take place. So it was interesting finding out pretty much right away, because I hadn't done any of the pre-release stuff as far as when it was going to take place.
Right. That makes sense. I gotta admit, I was when I first got heard this announcement, I wasn't the most thrilled. I mean, I'm always thrilled enough about any Star Wars project because I love the galaxy. This wasn't something I was like, oh, I want to see more of these guys. I remember seeing their arc in Clone Wars like way long ago. Like they released it on, I think it was on StarWars.com. Like it was like not done, but they decided to release it as much as it was done anyways. It was like this fake animation that kind of like wasn't that great. And then of course we did get to see the fully realized version in season 7, and I thought the arc was fine. Like it was an A-Team in Star Wars and it was cool, but the arc itself didn't do a whole lot for me. It was fine. So it's kind of like, okay, we'll see what happens. I remember getting a little more excited when I realized I did check out some of the pre-release stuff, and they mentioned that it's going to take place right after Order 66, and I was like, that's a nice pocket of time to really to do a deep dive in, because we haven't been there yet. We've been a little bit after with Solo. Obviously, we've been closer to the Rebels with Rebels and with Rogue One and things like that. But this like really fresh Darth Vader era, really fresh Empire era, something we hadn't really seen. And the transition from clones to conscription soldiers, as we saw beginning this episode already to a degree, always interested me. So I was like, okay. And then now that we've gotten there, and closer we got to it, I got more and more excited, especially because I realized how much this could interact with not necessarily the big guns, but like just the smaller guns that we've seen here and there. Continuing the Clone Wars, which I loved, and maybe potentially, like we found out soon, like right in the get go, it could tie into some things we know from later on, like Rebels. But without further ado, I think we should just go right into it. Okay, so the episode begins, and I loved it right away. We got this like tribute to the Clone Wars. Rebels was always seen as like a sequel to Clone Wars, but in reality, this was the sequel. We have like the announcement voice, the announcer guy. We got the big Clone Wars big that burned into the Bad Batch. And then one of my favorite parts about the whole episode we get this animated version of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. I was like, that's something I wanted to see the whole time. Even when they had the Clone Wars season 7 arc with Ahsoka, I wanted to get more and more of the animated side of what we'd already seen. I know maybe that's stupid, but I like the idea of that. What did you guys think about that opening? How did it grab you? Were you into it?
Yeah, it grabbed me, especially like the second time I watched it when I noticed it was exactly the scenes from Revenge of the Sith. I was like, wait, hold on a minute. I've seen that before. And then you hit, like you said, you hear the announcer from Clone Wars, and it's like it just pulls you into that small pocket of time that we talk about. And it's like, okay, I'm ready now. All these curiosities in my head are about to be answered. Let's get straight to it.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of fills in the fringes because you see the most important pivotal events in the movies, and then it's always like, well, we got a whole galaxy though. So there's some, and to move an empire or move a republic into an empire, there's obviously got to be a lot of wheels turning. So it's cool to see sort of the other aspects of like, well, yeah, we kind of stopped in Revenge of the Sith right when it happened. So the fact that he's recapping and I knew it was going to be after Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I agree. It's like kind of a nebulous time where we're in a transition period in the whole galaxy. So it's pretty cool.
Definitely like that. Monty, the premise of the show pulled him in right away. Follow the clones directly after Order 66. Yeah, Mullen, that sounds interesting. Yeah, that is what eventually did get me there. I'm not gonna lie. Dan saying he was pleasantly surprised at how much he liked it. Needs to warm up to Amiga still. We'll get there. But I do understand this is still also a show for kids. I get that's what we all gotta kind of remember. Star Wars in general is meant more overall for kids. There's varying degrees to that. There's like Resistance kids, which is I'll leave that one for the kids. But then there's stuff like this, which I can take what's meant for me and what's meant for kids as well.
And there's stuff for us, the big kids.
Exactly, the big kids. Vermont Mike just saying hi. I won't stay long as I haven't seen episode 2 yet. Episode 1 was great. All right, yeah, we're going to go in order there, Mike, so you can stick around for a little bit. We'll go through episode 1, and I'll let you guys know when we jump into episode 2. So I'll let you know there. But thanks for popping in as always. I think exactly what you said. The interesting thing to me, one of the interesting things about it is that we had already kind of gotten the presentation. I mean, let's get right after. Let's cut the chase here. You get Kane and Jarrus right away, as Caleb knew. That was not ever like really released at all. That was kind of a surprise to me right from the get go. I saw them zoom in on Depa Bilaba, and I was like, oh shit, we're gonna get fucking Kanan, aren't we? That's what we're getting Kanan. And I was interested in that aspect because I know ever since Disney bought Lucasfilm, they made this big point about how everything is canon, everything's going to interconnect. And we had kind of in a comic book gotten a presentation of Kanan in Order 66. Now this kind of retroactively, it kind of retcons that comic book a little bit. I expect to be more mad at that, but I guess maybe I've grown up in a couple of years and I said, fuck, as long as it's cool, it works, as long as it's like not like completely switching everything around. It basically just took the comic book run and kind of inserted the Bad Batch into it, so to speak, and made it a little bit more interesting. And that's fine by me. I don't know. Did that bother you guys? Did you guys read those comics at all from back in the day?
I don't really do the comics too much. I listen to the audiobooks of the full novels and the smaller novels. So I hadn't heard about that. And whatever he had mentioned in Rebels, I didn't remember in enough detail to be mad at it.
Okay.
But we can just say he didn't remember that the Bad Batch was there. And then that's why he didn't have that in his memory.
You said that perfectly. I love that. My own thing. I've always thought that the headcanon can make things a little. You can always massage things over enough. Yeah. You got that unreliable narrative or the things they choose not to remember. Whatever. You're like, okay, I can see how that works. Matt, what about you? Did you ever read that issue?
I did read the Kanan comics. I love them. Am I annoyed that it didn't stick to them? Not at all. No. Because at the end of the day, it's still a whole new story. So, and they are not a massive part of this story. Right. It was completely fine to me. The one thing I would have changed a little bit is from having worked in music production in a studio, they could have tweaked Freddie Prinze Jr.'s voice a little bit, maybe done a little bit of pitch correction here and there.
Sounded a little surfer bro, like he was.
Well, I think Rum actually says that. He's not sure why people are crapping over Freddy's voice. They're saying it's too deep, but I thought they lightened it up enough and loved his cameo.
It was still great. I still was like, "Holy shit!" Freddie Prinze Jr. came back for it. That's awesome.
That's the way I thought. I was kind of like, obviously you can't really do a whole lot. Freddie Prinze Jr. is not a 13-year-old boy or whatever however old he's supposed to be. So I kind of like, it's one of those times where it's more important to get the audio cue of, oh, this is Kanan, than it is to get a child voice or a computerized version of it. It didn't bother me. I kind of actually want to say, it's almost like one of the things like I love despite its flaw. It's like when you watch the Stormtrooper hit his head in A New Hope, you laugh and you love it because it happened, even though you know it wasn't supposed to happen or it's not supposed to be exactly there. But that's kind of funny. I get that point. I get the point that they could have tweaked it a little bit potentially. Real quick, I just want to also throw in here, I just saw Ryan Kramer in the chat as well. Always good to see you, Ryan, in there. Great, the third time we get to see the same events from a different point of view, what other characters were doing at the same time. I got to be honest with you about that. I would see Order 66 a billion times from different angles. I love
watching Jedi die. Kill them all, I say.
Right.
I want to see every single Jedi die, so for everybody has their perspectives.
Normally, I'd be okay with that, being the dark sider on the show, being the Sith. Normally, I'd be okay with that, but hearing the music in this episode and just seeing Gray walk off, I was like, oh no. Oh god, it's happening. Oh god. And I was like, oh god, are the Bad Batch going to be the ones to do it?
That I did have. I wondered really quick about that, and well, we kind of get a little bit more of that later on. Obviously,
it was very obvious which one was evil because he talked like this.
What is it about that kind of accent? I always do is that's the bad guy. That's going to be the bad guy here. But either way, all right, we get Order 66. We got the reintroduction of the crew. I love the fact that one of the things I wanted to mention right off the bat is that you didn't have to have seen the arc. You didn't have to have seen the Bad Batch arc to really get into this. You can really go in clean and not having known it because they do a good job of introducing the characters. Does it give you a little more background? Absolutely. Stuff about Echo, that's important to know to a degree. But you go in, you get a good introduction to the characters. And I felt right away that this was more fun than the Bad Batch arc from the Clone Wars. I really was into these guys a lot more right away. I mean, it was this big like comic booky kind of introduction. It was like the splash page. Here these guys are. Here's Wrecker. Here's Hunter. Here's Crosshair. Here's Tech. But I didn't
introducing first.
Exactly. That's what it kind of was. It's like we're gonna see these guys. We're gonna see these guys be a big badass. Let's get it out of the way. I liked it. I don't know if you guys. Some people I know were maybe a little bit like thought it was a little too much, a little bit too like almost.
I loved it.
Schmaltzy, but you loved it. Okay, on the same page as that. All right. Ooh, sorry about that. It's all right. It's my bag of empty bottles. That sounds like.
Oh, okay.
So lazy. I have to get rid of that at some point. Let's see. All right, Jeff. Good to see you as always. Zach saying he didn't love the animation on Bad Batch.
Wow.
Interesting. Talk to me about that. I'm not a huge animation guy. I haven't watched too many animations, so it didn't bother me at all. What did you guys think about it?
I thought it was beautiful.
Okay.
I thought this was beautifully made.
I think I've noticed because I sort of binged the Clone Wars, and you noticed whenever you watch them back to back those seasons how much better the animation gets, and because in the early ones and especially in the movie Clone Wars, it's very stiff and there's a lot of recycled motions and stuff that you notice. But I think season 7 of Clone Wars and then this had a big improvement from the previous animated series, even Rebels, which I know was sort of the middle ground between the two. It's I thought the environments especially looked really good in this. All the waterfalls and everything in that first episode looked really cool.
I'm glad I had you on, John. I know you like your animation quite a bit, so you're good. You're a good person to have on. I'm always kind of like, look good to me. But I agree. Even I, as a Philistine, as far as animation goes, saw a difference between like Clone Wars season 1 and Clone Wars season 7. I mean, you kind of got a pretty big transition, and I thought this was pretty close to Clone Wars season 7 at least. So I was happy enough with it. But Omega feels off.
Yeah, actually, I can kind of see that, like, sort of a little bit flatter look. I don't know how to best describe it.
Right. I can see what you mean by that. I guess if it's somebody pointed out to me, I can kind of see it, but otherwise it's not something I'm going to catch right away.
Yeah. The big improvement I always noticed with season 7 and then this is like the impact and the action and everything. I feel like I feel it a lot more. Some of the early Clone Wars seasons, it feels really floaty when they're like clashing lightsabers or slamming into things. It feels like they're just sort of floating away. And in the more recent animated stuff, it feels like there's really like you can almost see the shockwaves of everything whenever it's happening. Yeah.
As weight.
Especially with the Maul and Ahsoka fight, like that one.
Yeah.
Well, I remember they made a big deal out of that about Ahsoka. Like they actually got Ray Park to come in and they actually like visualize him doing it instead of just like animating it. They actually had him physically do it and then animated it after that, which probably makes a lot of difference instead of just thinking about what it looks like and actually seeing what it actually looks like. It is also funny you mentioned that Richard R. Jarvie, other scoundrel, had a hard time getting into animation for that reason. One of the reasons he said was that the physics of it always threw him off, and he had a hard time like following it. Just seemed like it was wonky to him, so it took him out of the story, I guess. So hopefully this won't be as big of an issue. So let's see what we got here. All right, well let's move on. Then we got the introduction of the crew. Obviously, Order 66 happens, and obviously our protagonist for the most part, outside of one, seems to not be affected by the inhibitor chip, which I was wondering how they were going to do, but I was pretty satisfied with the explanation enough. I mean, sometimes you don't need like a big, long, in-depth, but the idea of, oh, they're different, so that makes them act different. It was good by me. But I did love the fact that they kept one of them at least. I like the aspect of that because it doesn't make sense that all 5 of them, it's almost like too convenient in a way. Giving them one to actually still be struggling with that, I liked that choice. And what did you guys think about that?
I feel like it introduced a cool possible arc in that I feel like they're going to try and get him back by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because there's, 16 episodes? I feel like that might be kind of season finale-ish territory where they get his big confrontation. He's probably got a bunch of stormtroopers or whatever it's going to be at that point with him. And they have to, like, get the chip out like they did in that one Clone Wars arc.
Right. That's an interesting side. I think you're actually... I agree with you on that. I know somebody in the chat, Zach was saying earlier, they wanted to see it not be an inhibitor chip, which is an interesting angle to me too. I think it's a little bit of both. I kind of feel like he is a kind of good soldiers, follow orders soldier anyway, even without the chip. So with the chip intensified, it makes it even more so. So wouldn't it be very interesting if they got the chip out and he still was trouble? Like it was like a failed.
I'm just a dick, guys.
Sorry, guys. I've been a dick all along. Exactly.
I just want to kill all the kids. Don't worry about it. I want to kill all the kids.
Anakin just comes in, my man.
Bring me Liam. As they say. I don't know, it could be either way, but I do like at least it gets us up the confrontation pretty well. But we get off. Kanan gets away. They goes back towards Camino. It's moving on to Camino at this point. Obviously, everything's a little freaky right now. They're kind of confused as to what's going on, which also makes for obviously great tense storylines because all the Coruscant guard is there, all the clones are there, and they're all just step two.
Seeing the Coruscant guard.
Yeah, well, seeing that, I don't even know what Jedi it was, the falling lightsaber and everything else. But they're like, we're all with our protagonist being like, what the fuck is going on? I don't get what's going on here. Why is everybody acting like this? It's a nice little angle here. We kind of get them kind of interested. And you got Wrecker, who doesn't really give a shit about anything. That's what I love about Wrecker. I love watching Wrecker.
He's my favorite dude. It was Crosshair, now it's Wrecker.
It was Crosshair, now it's Wrecker. Yeah, Wrecker, just to me, like, it's nice to have this simple character that, like, he doesn't have to worry about. You know what you're going to get with Wrecker, and you know that Wrecker doesn't care what's going on. He's just going to have a good time, and for the most part. But we get back, and we have the big assembly, of course, where we get to... It's another thing I've always loved. So one of the few things I liked about the Resistance show is getting to see, like, different angles of things we've seen. Like, we got, like, in Resistance, they showed us General Hux's speech from Kaz's angle. And here we get, obviously, the very famous Palpatine in the Senate speech. And we get to see the clones watching that. And again, I love the aspect of the clones being all like, yeah, even though we're like... You realize that you're like he's getting rid of you. He doesn't care about you, and yet they're all like all for it.
You're at the very least unemployed.
Exactly. I mean, the war is over. You're created for the war. Do the math. At this point.
that moment, also Wrecker has one of his best moments. Is when Palpatine says, "It's left me scarred and deformed," and Wrecker just leans across and goes, "You can say that again." He's essentially like the kid in class. It's just like, hey, like,
He's
yeah.
the cutout.
Mm.
But that's actually what I mean by him in a way, though. He's necessary because he kind of lightens the tension just enough where you can go like, okay, it's still a fun adventure show enough. There's enough going on, but like you still got that kind of like. Because even the best of Star Wars always has those moments of levity, despite the darkest of situations. Except maybe Revenge of the Sith at the time, but that's a different story. Unless you're laughing at kids getting slaughtered like Matty does.
Well, with all the memes that have been made, you still laugh at Revenge of the Sith now.
True.
So
Not intended to necessarily, but you
Quite
do.
possibly the most memed movie out of the franchise.
Of all time, I think.
the
and
whole
beyond.
movie is just he said it.
He said the thing exactly. That's just interesting idea. Zach says he's by intensifying his chip. When they do that, we're going to get to that in a little bit. They basically strip him of agency and makes him less compelling. I don't necessarily disagree. But I do think that it had to be done to a degree also, because I think that even though he has differing opinions than Hunter does and everything else, he's still part of the crew. So intensifying that allows him to step away from it a little bit, as long as it's temporary. As long as it's a temporary thing, I think it can be okay. It's like one of those like bolster of like you got to like get reinforced with your beliefs and your thoughts at this point. It might make it a better arc when he does eventually come back, depending on how they do it. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think if they get rid of it and he's still contentious, because even before they intensified it, he was about ready to fight, but like at least for leadership of the group.
Yeah.
So it's not like all their problems are going to go away and he's going to be like, you're the best guy once it's gone. I feel like maybe season 2 would be their conflict of leadership.
I like that idea. That could definitely work out for me. I don't know what Zach feels about that. What about you, Maddie? What do you think?
I feel like it could be good, especially if they take it out. If he doesn't rejoin the crew, if he goes off on his own and is like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I was this stone cold killer. Now they've taken this chip out of my head. Like, who am I? It's not, for me, this whole show is going to be, the main theme of it is forging your own identity.
You know what? I could actually, honestly, that'd be I like where your head's at that. I can see that happening at the end of season 1. We get him back. Season 2, it doesn't have to be like a leaves forever. You can leave for a long time. You could leave for an arc, like the Ahsoka walkabout arc kind of thing, where he has his own little like arc where he gets to figure himself out. It could lead to some great stories, but maybe he does come back and decide he wants to be the leader as well. It could lead to some grateful conflict. I don't know how many seasons we're going to get, but I'm hoping we get a bunch at this point because there's so many different ways this show could possibly go.
Then he comes back and kills all the kids.
Yeah, and he comes back and kills the kids. That's all. He hunts the rest of the kids. He specializes in the kid hunting at that point. But okay, at this assembly, when we're talking about this assembly, let's go back to where we were. We get introduced to Omega. Now, this was the most contentious part of the show, I feel. I feel some people had a problem with Omega, some people didn't. Without getting into what we kind of figure out by the end, because we'll get there, what is your initial thoughts of Omega, and are you on board or not? Or was there a point when you got on board?
I got a text from a friend of mine who hated Omega with a flaming passion. He said, the text said, is this the Bad Batch or the Dad Batch? What the hell is this? And I was like, dude, you're completely missing the whole point of the character. This is take Grogu and put him into a humanoid child. Boom. That's what she is. She's the part of the show that the kids can be like, hey, she's kind of like me. She's a kid. She's going around with these mercenaries. Cool. This is the character that I look to. Whereas we can be like, oh, dude, how cool is Wrecker beating the shit out of all these droids? How cool is Crosshair shooting all these kids? Like, I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't offend me to the point that I'm seeing it on a lot of people. But, you know, could do with, could do without.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not like mad at her, and you can kind of see like they're laying groundwork, obviously. So I wasn't going to jump to anything these first couple episodes. Once you found out she was a clone, though, that kind of upped it, because it's like, okay, so they're sort of like Maddie was saying, like kind of finding her identity too. Like it could be what all the show is about, but it's definitely what I think her arc is about, with the way she runs away from Camino and everything and has to find out what her purpose is, basically.
Good point. Very good point. Actually, I had a friend as well who did text me at the point, like about halfway through. He was watching the episode a couple of days after it aired, and he basically was like, "I don't know. I'm not quite into the show. I'm not quite into Amiga yet." And then all of a sudden, that flipped when she became the clone, or she was revealed as the clone. All of a sudden, he goes, "Oh wait, okay, this also just took a little bit of a tweak now," and I agree with that. My first initial thoughts of her is, okay, this is the kid. This is the kid, the entry point, like Matty said. This is where the kids are going to follow and get into the show, hopefully. And that's fine. Again, I'm not going to be too caring about it. But I did start wondering, is this going to be this version show of the chosen one, so to speak? And do we need a chosen one again? And like that's going to be a tired angle. But I felt by the end, and we'll get more into detail, I will say that there is a chosen one aspect to it, but it's definitely a more low-key, minor chosen one of this show rather than chosen one of the universe. Which,
yeah, she's like the mystery of the show.
Right, the mystery. Yeah. Exactly.
She's a more sensitive clone, which seems to be the big theory that going around.
That's where we're going to get that. And it's right, exactly what it is. You need a character like Omega to balance the show, because you have these 5 major male alpha points. And you have to have that little bit of a family sense. You have to have the family member who's a little more, I don't know, not sensitive is not the right word, but not quite the same aggressive male alpha that we get out of the five Bad Batch. Well, 4 now that Crosshair's done. Crosshair's the dickbag that he is now at this point. Yes, and that is true. Our sponsor, Crosshair, killing those kids, is going to be our next commercial we're going to make.
Killing the kids is a through line for most of the episodes we do. We talked about it in Revenge of the Sith. We talked a little bit about it in A New Hope. We're talking a little bit about it now.
How can we find a way to kill them kids? That's the
Enter the promo code Younglings for 10% off.
I'm going to make that happen. PLD Products, I'll make that happen. Speaking of that,
promo code Liam25.
25, there you go. But so we get this character at this point. We don't know what she is right away, but she's definitely interesting to begin with. We get to meet her again. We get to see that Tarkin is there now. Obviously, Admiral Tarkin's coming in. We knew this beforehand from the trailer he was going to be in. I do think he makes the perfect villain for the show, or at least a main antagonist. He's kind of like, I forget the name of the guy in the A-Team. He has that one military guy that was always like the guy that was in charge of hunting down the A-Team. I can't remember his name now. He's going to fill that role, though. And it makes much more sense than like someone like a Vader, because Vader wouldn't be handling these guys. Vader's off doing a lot more, like, as far as Emperor's concerned, more important.
He's got a whole galaxy. He's got a lot to run under his belt.
There's a lot, as we found out, there's a lot more Jedi that survived Order 66 that we know. It seems like every chance we get, there's somebody else who just happened to make it out of Order 66 alive. It's like every day it's like a double. It's like a 2, 4,
I'm just
6.
picturing every clone commander like, did you kill the Jedi? Yeah, sure. He's on another planet, guys. He's never going to find out.
We'll never find out. We'll never know.
I mean, at this point in time, when this episode was airing, you got to think this is probably when Anakin was laying limbless on a riverbank in Mustafar. So
That's
he's
true.
probably not doing much right now.
At this point, you're absolutely right. But either way, I do like having Tarkin in as the bad guy. Anytime we get more Tarkin, though, is also a good thing, too, because we never got a lot from him. Obviously, he gets killed in episode 4. You get a little bit of him in Rogue One, a little bit of him in the Clone Wars, a little bit of him here in Rebels and everything there. So I'm always glad to get more Tarkin. I think Steven Stan does a great job with his voice, so it works out very well for me. And I love right away that we get. It's amazing how quickly this plan must have been in place, because I mean, like you said, Vader's still lying on the the banks of Mustafar, and here we are, Tarkin saying, "Yep, we're done with clones now. You're done. War's barely over 5 minutes. We don't need you anymore. Nope, probably doesn't even exist. Our contract's null and void." That right there, that line, I'm kind of like, wow. I want to use that in my. I use that in some of my bill collectors. You know, like, this household doesn't exist in the same way anymore. I tweaked it. We're a different household now. So you made a contract with these people. That doesn't exist anymore. Forget it. It's all over.
If you get too much debt, just change your name.
This mortgage is under PL Daddy, not Paul Denuzio.
It's Paul Denuzio, not Denuzo. So that's null and void at this point. So you're done. That it did intrigue me, though. I liked seeing that. I can just see them again. But beyond that, we actually get the testing. The cafeteria food fight comes next.
So sweet.
And this is one of my favorite parts of the show. This is one of my favorite parts of the whole episode. I get to see the aggression of Wrecker and the aggression of Omega in a way. And this was my first thought that I wonder if Omega. By the end, I will get into this. I kind of thought she might be. You mentioned it earlier, Matt. Matty, she might be force sensitive, and that's something I think we'll get into a little bit. But the other theory I had at one point was maybe she was the mixture of all of the Bad Batch. And I kind of got these little hints of things. Like in the cafeteria was her Wrecker side. She might not have the strength that Wrecker has, but she kind of has the aggression and then don't fuck with the attitude that Wrecker had. Obviously, we had some little issues later on. She obviously has great senses that she might have gotten from Hunter. She's actually a better shot than Crosshair, as it looks like. I mean, I'm going to get off the. You know, I want to divert just for a second. My one negative about the old episode is for a guy named Crosshair, he conveniently misses at the right time when the plot needs him to. And that's true about a lot of movies and shows. This was like 4 or 5 times. I'm kind of like, not quite Crosshair.
It was like that moment in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie when Colin Farrell throws the thing, and then like Ben Affleck just like steps aside, and Colin Farrell just goes, "I missed. I never miss." It's just like, come on, dude.
Nobody's ever moved before. Come on.
Exactly.
It's a pretty easy way to dodge something.
I mean, he shoots at Kate and Jarrus, just hits the branch. A lot of times it just seemed like it was like, okay. So basically, when we need him to, he's not quite as good as you think he is.
Yeah, he's good at hitting things that don't move.
Right.
It was raining. He had his chip cranked up. Maybe that messed with his equilibrium a little bit. He's like had some electricity going on in his brain. He's like, ew.
Well, there you go. You know what? That's actually not wrong. Monty's saying maybe he was missing on purpose. Maybe he's fighting his new programming. Maybe. And maybe that's the way they want to go. I mean, again, it didn't bother me to the point where I'm like, oh, fuck this show. I'm still fuck them kids, and let's go on at this point. So I'm all in.
Imagine if he just pegged her right in the head there. Like, sorry, kids, you don't get a hero.
It's all over. You thought this was your newfound hero. Guess what? You're done. But either way. And Zach, yes, we will get this in a second, but we'll go back to that in a little bit. We have the cafeteria fight, which is fun. Getting to see that action. It was a nice little. Whereas, like the episode, I kind of feel like Bad Batch is going to have a lot of action. We got right into the action right away. There was a little bit of a long lull in the 75-minute episode, meet in the middle. This kind of got it back into a little bit of the fun action. Like it wasn't important action, but it was silly. Fun time to get to see the regs versus the Bad Batch and see where the Bad Batch stand. I think it was important to set it up at this point so we get them as the outsiders in a way. The sad batch, as the reg says. Which is kind of funny to me because it feels like half the time when they're needed, I guess this is another little small negative I had. Half the time when it's needed, like people look at them in awe. Like at the beginning, like, oh my god, these 5 guys, they're going to kick ass. They're all we need. Then you get them away from them, they're like, these guys are fucked up. These guys are losers and they're sad. Or like they basically whatever they needed to be at the time. So either are all of them or they're outsiders. You got to pick your lane there a little bit, you know. What do you guys think about that at all? Did it bother you at all?
I think it was kind of another way for them to like rope it in for the kids because when you're a kid and you're at school, like you're gonna like if you're the little outcast kid, there's gonna be a bunch of jockey bras that are just like be a nerd, like go sit somewhere else, you dork. And it's just like I relate to that. I've had that.
I feel like it could have been a little bit more balanced. Like a few of the clones could have been like, well, they did destroy that entire droid battalion 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they saved my ass too. I don't know why you guys are so mean to them.
Exactly. That's kind of what I meant. It was that kind of way. But again, minor tweaks, minor issues, not that big of a deal overall. Yeah. And then you're going to have little bits like that. But okay, so then we're a little bit behind. We have a little bit of time left. Let's go through. We get to go to. Yeah, they test them out. Obviously, the Tarkin tests them out in the new thing, and that was kind of cool, kind of reminiscent of the Clone Wars episodes, Rookies, and things like that. But then we get sent to Onderon to basically test their loyalty. But right before that, you get the reveal that it seems like a lot of people got fooled by. A lot of people didn't think about until it was pointed out when Nala says there was 5 clones that were left from the Bad Batch, and everybody's like, oh yeah, it's the 5 guys. Forgetting like everybody else says that Echo isn't one of the Bad Batch necessarily.
I thought they were talking about Echo. I was wondering.
Everybody thought that.
Talking about Echo.
totally was all in. Totally didn't realize it until later on. So that is good storytelling, because if you fool your audience, an audience like this especially, who's usually looking for like the Easter eggs, looking for stuff to like point at, you get through that and you have a reveal later on when Echo says, "Oh yeah, that's not five of us." That's well done. That was well done. I love that aspect of it, and it kicked Omega up into an interesting level for me. Were you guys fooled? So, Matty, you were fooled. You said, right?
Yeah. Like I when they said that, I was like, yeah, of course, there's five of them in the crew. Like, of course, that's
Right.
what they mean.
Right. John, were you fooled?
I didn't catch it. I didn't even realize it until they mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true.
Exactly. So I was very cool about that. And we did get a good test of AZI. You can see AZI again real quickly. That's going to be a FCL question, 5-point championship level question. The full name of the medical droid, AZI 34521189624649872137. I didn't have it written down. I just wrote that off the top of my head. But
Yeah, the look away at the screen really sold that.
Now do it backwards.
so backwards. 9431278946242. Okay. Anyway,
Look me in the eye and say it.
look right now. Anyway, but we get to go back to Onderon. I don't know if you guys thought like I mean, to me it was like, all right, we're getting Saw Gerrera. If we're going back to Onderon, there's no reason to see Insurgents, Onderon. We're gonna get Saw Gerrera. So that did not surprise me at all as soon as they mentioned Onderon. That guy. So were you on the same track as me?
Yeah, because all the droids would have been shut down at this point.
Right.
So it was like, okay, it's got an Onderon. It's got to be Saw, or at least someone in Saw's camp.
The partisan.
Would mention Saw. Yeah.
Right.
Honestly, like I said, I've only watched the Clone Wars once. I didn't think about like, oh, Onderon. I didn't realize that's where Saw was at this point.
Okay.
And his character model was, obviously very different from what we're used to, other than during the Clone Wars arc that he was in.
Right.
But it was like, oh yeah, this is Skinny Saw. That's right. Because whenever he first said it, it's a different voice and it's a different looking guy. It's Saw. Okay.
It did look a little bit like it was. I thought it was the artwork from Sure Saw was pretty good overall. It definitely was a step towards the Saw we know from the Clone Wars arc. It was a little bit older, a little more beaten down, a little lean. So the voice was good. It was a good voice overall. I was glad to see Saw. A lot of people. I always wonder when we get characters. A lot of people have bitched before about making the universe smaller. This, that, and that thing. To me, if it's done right and it makes sense, then I'm all for it. And this made absolute sense to me. Saw as a thorn in the Empire side, someone the Empire would want to shut down. So to see him in action at this point on Onderon completely made sense to me, and I have no problem with that. Were you guys happy to see Saw? Do you care about Saw? Do you want to know more with Saw?
I mean, Rogue One is my favorite movie, so any character from that, my favorite Star Wars movie, I should say. But I was a little disappointed there wasn't Bor Gullet like trailing behind him. Like we get a little origin story of how he gets into his tentacle monsters.
That's season 3, I think. I think that's season 3 or 4. They're saving that story. That's going to be a big season finale kind of arc, I think. Bor Gullet.
Just comes out of the swamp.
I love that.
He's been letting us stay in his home.
So yeah, obviously that happened, and we have another cross-servers Hunter aspect at this point, and we get to go back. They destroyed the Imperial Probe Droid, which they realized they did more and more against the Empire at this point. It's definitely the 4 of them, besides Crosshair, are pretty much on the same page that they don't like what's going on, and they're going to have to get out of here. Whereas we get Crosshair obviously being fighting his programming, but not winning a lot. So we get to the end, we get back to Camino, and they decide to go back for Omega, which at that point was where I guess it tweaked to me. I'm like, okay, cool, this is what we're going to get from her. They get back there, they get captured at Camino, and they get thrown in this little makeshift prison, so to speak. And we get the inhibitor boost from Crosshair, gets taken out, gets that little extra jolt from the programming. But I love the time we had with the prison at this point, because we get to see, first of all, you get to see Omega talking to Crosshair for a bit.
My favorite moment.
It was
That's my favorite moment of the episode.
Right. It was a very touching moment, and that's what sold me completely on Omega, where she could be. She could be for the adults as well for that reason. It has there's an emotional side to it that we can't get with just the gruff alpha guys. They're not going to show their emotions really very much outside. This is a way we can get in touch with that. And I loved that aspect. We get to see, is Crosshair a bad guy? Is he a little bitch? Is he not? He's still fighting it. He's still fighting. And that's where I think we are, like the John, you said, I think we're going to get this whole season-long arc where eventually there's going to come to be a point where they're going to try to get him out, try to get him back on their side, and we're going to find out. I love this aspect. And so that's the prison part. Also the part, of course, where Wrecker starts trying to break out with the help of tech. I kind of love that whole thing. Like it reminded me of being like my parents trying to make it like.
When he hit it the first time, I was like, "Come on, dude, don't punch it like a bitch. Put some fucking mustard on it." And then he just he cranked it back. I was even there. I was when he actually hit it the first time. I was like, "Come on, dude, turn your fucking shoulder over, hit it properly." Then he went over and did it, and I was like,
he underestimated the wall. He was only using 10% the first time.
That's right. Yeah, they're trying to make it not as noisy as it was gonna be. But okay, so the crew get out. They get out, obviously, and they make do. They get with help from Omega, which is obviously necessary. We get to the big sequence at the end and the hangar where we finally have the big. It's kind of, I want to say it's not. I don't want to say it's cheesy, but it's the well used trope of the door opens, the lights behind it, and there's the bad guy or the good guy turned bad, or the big moment where the guy comes into focused on. There's Crosshair, and he's a full-on dickbag now.
Do you think he's going to be like the first Death Trooper? I think I can't remember. I think it was one of the Damon streams that I was listening to, and someone asked if they think that Crosshair is going to be the first Death Trooper.
That's an interesting angle. That's definitely an interesting angle. I don't think he's going to be, because I think that you're right. We're going to get the angle of him being returned to the good side, so to speak. I still think that's going to be the eventual one, because Star Wars is always about redemption. And they need somebody to be redeemed. But it's an interesting way to think about it, potentially, I guess. But the important part comes. We have the showdown. Of course, one of my favorite lines in the whole episode was Hunter. Is that an order? I guess I'm not following that one either.
Yeah.
Badass moment. So they get out. They get out of the most part with that, but the big part there is Omega being the crack shot, being better than Crosshair has, even though she's never fired a gun. And this is where let's break into it now. This is where I kind of was like, okay, I think Omega is going to be force sensitive. I think that the Star Wars needs to have something with the Force in it, or it's not really Star Wars. You could have a lot of military stuff. You can have a lot of Order 66, a lot of clone stuff, a lot of pirate stuff, a lot of scoundrel stuff, like all that stuff. But when the Force isn't into it, it doesn't feel completely like Star Wars all the time. So you don't need a lot of it. Rogue One didn't have a lot of it, but it had the Guardians of the Wills, and it had that kind of like that one character, Chirrut and Baze were definitely still, Chirrut was basically still into the Force and everything else. So you had that tether to it. I think Omega is going to be that. I think, especially when you combine that with the little Nala Se talking to the Prime Minister about and he's saying like, we got to keep this secret. We can't let this out. What can't they let out? What don't we know? Is it because they actually try to make the best? Obviously, she's not a complete clone from Jango Fett, obviously, because she's a girl. So she's not obviously a direct clone. So what happened? What made this happen? I think we're going to find out. This is my own prediction. I think we're going to have that she was from Jango Fett spliced with some Jedi of potential. And my actually thought about this, Matty will get this more, is I'm thinking Avar from the High Republic.
Wow.
The blonde from the High Republic, right from the get-go. I think that's the way they're going to be connected to. Somehow they had her DNA from something. I'm not sure what yet.
That's a reach, but I can see where you're coming from. I think that's a little bit of a reach, but I can see where you could be coming from there.
It's a different reach.
It's definitely better than what I saw of someone put a picture of Omega next to a picture of Snoke. And they noticed that the markings on the head were the same. I was like, "Come on!" Like
that's
that.
The reach.
Like
That's
every Kaminoan is wearing that bloody head necklace thing. Like,
so her character arc is going to be to end up in a jar with Palpatine watching her.
Yeah, or like a spoiler for the last Vader comic. It's when Vader goes to Exegol and he sees Luke's hand.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, come on!"
That hand gets around, I'll tell you.
That hand has seen more of this galaxy than I've seen in a lifetime.
I I do want to give Crosshair some of his flowers before we absolutely torch him for getting beaten by a child. That in the training scene when Wrecker throws the knife and he shoots it into the droid's head.
That was fucking sweet.
Oh, fist pump moment, bro. Fist pump moment.
I will admit that was fucking pretty sweet. But yeah, so yeah, thanks, Dan. I agree. It would be cool to tie in the High Republic. I think that's what I'd like to see happen. Like, it's a way they could do it. So they obviously want to make High Republic a big event as far as the books and the comic books go. This is a way to kind of at least give a nod to that in a way in the cartoons. Excuse me. That's only one of possible. There's any possibility it could be. I just don't want it to be like an Anakin thing, or like I don't want it to be like something like that at all. That would be too cheesy. So
or a Palpatine.
Or a Palpatine thing. Yeah, exactly. We don't need any of that. Let's just have something completely different. That's big enough to me where it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Without it being like a random Jedi, like it's not Liam that was like Anakin sliced up Liam, so they got a clone, they got the DNA from that somehow.
Tom's gonna watch this and he's gonna be like, "Yep, they've been talking about Liam for a solid 45 minutes."
Liam is our patron saint of this show.
You just have the arms and legs, and then add a head on top. I don't think this is the best idea, guys. Maybe add a body.
It's just like multiple jars that are there. You got Luke's hand there, Darth Maul's legs are in another jar, and then you got Liam's head just in another jar.
Oh god.
Jango Fett's head. He was in the helmet still. We completed it.
Perfect. Frankenstein in Star Wars. Basically.
Kill me.
No. But either way, I do think she's force sensitive. I think that's going to be the angle we're going to go with, and it's going to be tough for the community wins to keep that under wraps. It'll make them want to get the Bad Batch even more if they have to track down this force sensitive kid. Except that Palpatine's after. They're trying in a way. I feel like they're trying to kind of like expand on Rise of Skywalker a little bit and kind of give that a little more backstory of how Palpatine got the clone body kind of thing. I think Omega was like the first in that realm that, we can get somebody who actually can touch the Force. So that was one of my things from a long time ago, way back in the day when I was younger, like in my 20s, and I was running a Star Wars message board. Like when the prequels came out, I kind of was like, well, why did they just fucking like do Darth Maul? Why did Palpatine just take Darth Maul and clone him? And that's your clone army. That's a pretty fucking unstoppable army, right? But I had this whole headcanon. My whole headcanon at the time was they couldn't my whole headcanon at the time was that because the clones were like artificial life to a degree, that the Force would reject them, like in a way. Like they wouldn't be able to touch the Force because they weren't really part of life to a degree. That was my headcanon. It made sense to me at the time. It's an excuse.
In The Force Unleashed 2, they try to make Force-sensitive clones, I remember, but that story was so convoluted, I lose track after that.
I played the game once, and I kind of because I remember barely any of it, to be honest, because it was exactly very convoluted. But that was my thought process back in the day. So if they couldn't do it for some reason, or they had some reason why they couldn't make Force-sensitive clones, I think this is the way of them trying to do it. Maybe they made that next step. And that's why Palpatine's going to have to try to hunt her down, because maybe they haven't been able to recreate that since, or something to that effect. I mean, that's part of the thing. She'll be that, instead of being Omega, she'll be Alpha to a degree.
Who is Alpha?
The one she was cloned from? I don't know.
Maybe, exactly.
Are there any characters named Alpha in those High Republic?
Mike Kramer, don't you dare put that in the universe.
It's out there in the universe now. Omega is Rey's mom. She's a Kenobi. I like this one best. She's actually two tubes.
I just thought of something. They have to have the scene where Palpatine bangs somebody to make Rey's
exactly Rey's father and everything, right? They do at some point. That's going to be the Star Wars After Dark episode we're waiting for.
Cantina band playing jizz music in the background, like we talked about last week.
Good.
Well, that's dirty. That's down deep. But okay. So I was going to try to get this done soon, but we're a little bit running late. So let's cut into real quick. We're going to hit episode 2 now. Cut and run. Obviously, they're going into. Real quick before we end episode 1, they're going to go to J19 and see an old friend. Did you guys have any predictions at that point? Did you think you knew where they were going to go with that?
I thought Rex.
You thought Rex?
Disney need to stop doing this thing where they put glaring hints in the title Because for someone like us who know our shit, it's like, come on, like you just you ruined it.
So what about you, John? Did you have any guesses at that point, or you just let it go and go with it?
Yeah, I didn't really have any guesses. I figured these guys, we haven't seen too much of them, so I was like, whatever friends they have are probably people we don't know either. But
That's my initial thought. I kind of was like, I don't want to look too far into this. I know, like, my looking into WandaVision, like, for example, I was kind of like, I'm looking too far into it. I want to just kind of accept it. Although I did in the back of my mind, at the bottom of my heart, go, let it be Hondo. Let it be Hondo. Because it would make sense that they would have that connection with Hondo and at some point. But here we are at episode 2. Virat, take care of Mike. I know you're going to leave now. Thank you. Appreciate that. Cut and run. Here we go. We find out right away that it is Cut and Sue, as we are in a way, as the family we're visiting. I loved that being from the Clone Wars thing. Again, it's the idea of, does it make the universe smaller? No, I don't think it makes the universe smaller at all. You get these parts from Clone, you get these little segments in there. It makes sense. He actually obviously had ties in with Rex, so he was a deserter himself. So the storyline makes sense that deserting the army, they would go to find another deserter. The fact that we didn't know that they knew each other, it's fine, because like as you said, John, we've only had one arc with these guys. We have no idea who they've really made contact with, what their adventures have been outside that one arc. What was that?
There was a lot of scratches on that wall, a lot of missions that they've done.
Exactly. So there's a lot we're going to learn that they probably had connections with. Buck, always good to see you, my friend. Always good to see
Buck.
you. So we get to visit Cut and Sue, and that's someone I didn't know if we'd ever get to see again. So that's another kind of nice little check-in on that family. And we get an update on Rex. We get the update on Rex, and like he mentioned, and I gotta be honest, I'm glad it wasn't Rex. Because I feel like it's way too early for them to try to bring Rex into the show. It kind of needs to establish itself first before it ends up bringing a bigger gun like that into the story. Because it's almost like, to me, it was when J.J. Abrams mentioned The Force Awakens, they mentioned that they tried to bring Luke Skywalker into the film earlier, and at one point it was going to be Luke catching the lightsaber on Starkiller that they ran up catching before they had the battle. And they said every time they tried to introduce Luke Skywalker into the story, it became a Luke Skywalker film, which is why they pushed Luke's reveal off into the very end of the movie. That made a lot of sense to me when I heard J.J. Abrams talk about that. I think the same would be the same here. I think if Rex got into the show, it also becomes about, all right, what happened to Rex after he left Ahsoka? And let's find out more about him. We don't care about the Bad Batch anymore. We want to find out about Rex. So introducing Rex now is bad. But hearing about him is nice. Mm-hmm. What do you guys thought?
Yesterday, I thought it was good. It was a nice little, just like a little tip of the cap. It was like, hey, you passed through here yesterday. It's like, okay, so Rex is close. He's nearby. We are gonna get him at some point. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit later on.
I'm thinking
that we are gonna get him.
I'm thinking season 1 finale kind of thing potentially, or maybe mid finale, or maybe even not even until season 2. Maybe that's like a season 2 premiere kind of thing. Maybe.
Rex versus Crosshair.
That could be actually it, because Rex has the experience of having fought the chip, having to get it out of it. Maybe he's the one who'll talk to him about getting it out in a way.
That's true. Yeah, and Rex is skilled, obviously, but he's not like a mutant like the Bad Batch is.
Right.
So he'd be like kind of the straight man to the group if he ever, gets in with them in a mission.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so we had the family bit. You got the whole idea with Omega trying to fit in with the Bad Batch, trying to fit in with the family. This kind of seemed to be a very typical plot point for this kind of story. The idea where Omega's with the rough and tumble group, and you really don't think she fits in, and the guys are going to go, well, she can't hang with us. We're fucking fighting, and we're on the run. We got to fit her in with a family that'll teach her well. And it's not going to go well, because she's a big part of the show. That's the whole thing. She's been one of the focuses of the show. She ain't going with Cut and Sue. Even though they try to get that tease in by the end. You're kind of like, oh, is she really going? Nah, you knew she was going to come back. But it made sense, because I think you need that moment in order to grow the characters, in order to grow Hunter and Omega's relationship. And it was good that it was with Cut and Sue, because the reason why that makes it work for me is that it's not just this random family we've never seen before. It's not like you're going to leave this person, we're here to leave the character with these people we just met. We don't know these people. What the hell's up with this? At least we've had an interaction with them. We kind of feel like they're almost like, even though they were only in one arc in Clone Wars, we still feel like we have history with them, so it would make sense. So that worked for me. Did it work for you guys, or was it too hack-eyed or too cliched for you guys?
The only thing I would say is Rex is just, or not Rex, but all the Bad Batch guys are just like, well, you should take her. And they never really ask him whether he's good with having another kid. He's just like, you want her? You're going to take her because we can't have her. He's like, excuse me, I have my own family. Like,
that's a funny point. I'm not going to lie. That actually, as a father of 3, that actually passed through my mind. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm going to be a father of 4. What the fuck? I can barely feed the kids I have, for Christ's sake, and add another one to the table? Jesus Christ. I'm losing everything. You do realize I'm losing my home. I'm losing my thing. I'm going out to the finest place in the world, and you're going to give me someone else to take care of. Thanks a lot, Hunter. Thanks a lot.
And it's just like, I'm sorry, I didn't think of it.
Well, I don't know what it is. I don't want it either.
If she'd have gone off, we'd have just seen like cut in a taxi, like in Total Recall. I got 4 kids.
Oh man! At the end of the day, that's the kind of thing you get that gets cut out of a 30-minute show, an animated show. You can't get into the kind of depth, unfortunately. But yeah, it didn't bother me enough to kill it. But I agree, it was kind of funny. One aspect I did like about the show, the second episode, was you get to see a Nexu again. The beast from Attack of the Clones gets to come back in full and animated form, and 4 eyes, the little bad kitty, as my wife said. My wife was like, kitty. I'm like, yeah, that's a bad kitty. That's not a good kitty. And I thought that was.
See John's face. He's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't say it.
Ritz bottle.
Exactly. That's. What was cool about that to me, though, honestly, was that it went a different direction than I thought it was going to go. Because of my whole force sensitive theory or whatever that I had, I watched this and I was expecting Ezra type situation. I was expecting her to like face the Omega to face the Nexu and like connect with it. And this is going to be the reveal of her being force sensitive. He's going to have some kind of connection and be able to calm the Nexu down, turn around. Everybody's going to be like, how'd you fucking do that? Like they always do. But we didn't get that. But so to me, that was actually very cool in a way, because they subverted my expectations with that. Because it was all set up to do that, and then it just didn't. It was just an idea of that she's going to get in trouble. We need this this is why we want to put her off with Cut and Sue and get her away, because she can't really handle herself. And so it added a lot of emotional sides for Hunter, for Omega, who gets her first real taste of any kind of action besides the hangar bay, obviously, in the real world, in the real universe, so to speak, outside of Camino. But what were your thoughts on that? Did you guys have that same thought I did? Did you guys think that was going to happen potentially, that she was going to be special and calm the Nexu down, or what were your thoughts?
I didn't go quite towards that direction. I was afraid that they were going to go like she saves them all by the end of the episode, because a lot of times when they set it up like, we're soldiers, you can't be with us, then it's immediately proven wrong, and like, oh, she saves everybody. Right. It was just like, yeah, she came back, she showed competence, but they didn't look inept by comparison.
Right. Okay, fair. What about you, Matty?
I kind of didn't know what to expect. I was like, is she about to get chewed up by the Nexu right now? Or
right.
Like is like Tech gonna come running in and save her? Like I knew that like she was gonna get saved somehow. It didn't occur to me until just then. I was like, hold on, she could have they could have done the thing where she used the Force, and like maybe the other guys didn't see it. They just walk up there and the Nexu's running away from her, and they'd be like, what the hell? How did you do that?
Right, absolutely.
Even if they decide to make her force sensitive, I feel like they wouldn't do it that soon, because it would be very reminiscent of Baby Yoda lifting the Rhino thing, like right at the beginning of Mandalorian. It'd be like the same plot point. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yep, Ryan bringing that up. Exactly, I was going to highlight that. Yeah. Exactly true. Sometimes Star Wars can hit similar beats, and you kind of expect that. But that's what I said. That's why this subverting that expectation definitely made it was a good thing for me. We get to find out. It's definitely more of a slow burn as far as finding out more about Omega at that point. So we get to the end there, the end of the episode, towards the episode, they have the whole situation in the spaceport shanty town or whatever. It was definitely a little bit convenient that they were able to get through everything, because they made it out to be such a hard thing, and then at the end of the day they're like, yeah, we're going to take care of business and still get out with Omega running away somehow, getting past all the guards and inserting herself into the ending battle there. But I liked it a lot. That's actually one of my favorite parts of all the episodes. I'll throw that in there now. Was when they asked Wrecker for his chain code. He's like, "Oh, it's here. Oh, wait, maybe it's this hand.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's so sick.
It's so like funny and so bad, but I love. I'm all in for Wrecker. Give me more Wrecker anytime you can get him. So they get away, and they're all a big happy family again. We don't even know what's going on at this point. So the episode ends, and we're in episode 2. What are your ending thoughts on after watching the first 2 episodes? Are you all in? Are you excited about the next one? Where do you think we're gonna go? Matt, we'll start with you.
I'm all in. Like I'm all in on this. I can't wait for the Ahsoka season, for the Ahsoka show, when we're probably going to see like Wrecker in some behind some bar somewhere, like a more aged Wrecker working in a cantina somewhere. The second episode gave me a little bit more real world implications, kind of because we saw the origins of the chain code, and they're tracking everyone in the galaxy. Right now, we've just had this big new world kind of change, and talking about like vaccine passports and stuff, that kind of bit. I was like, oh, that's a bit real world for me. Like, over here they're using this app to track where everyone is. I was like, oh, that's a bit real world. But yeah, I'm all in. I love this. I love this show. Wrecker's the man. Tech was my MVP for both of the episodes. I think Tech was the MVP. And yeah, I'm all in.
Very nice. How about you, John?
Well, I mean, I never give things like a rating or anything until we like see the whole product, because like I'm interested. I'm really going to follow this certainly like every week. And I think it has a chance to really culminate, at least season 1, in a really cool way, with them having their brother and having him to go against them and everything. Not that that has to be the conclusion, but it's really, I said this in the chat too, where it's like, I like exploring the new corner. So this is kind of an era. I feel like they always skip before the 20 years or all the way after the 20 years, right. Like Rogue One did. And there's like a lot of time in there that you can fill in, and Kenobi's going to do that. But this is more towards the beginning of it, and like the realignment of the whole galaxy with going Republic to Empire. So all that's really interesting to me. And the characters are all likable. So yeah, I'm definitely into it.
Nice. I agree 100%. That's actually what I mentioned before about the pocket of time being so interesting. We never, even back in the Legends day, I feel like we didn't get a whole lot during that time. There's a couple of book series that tackled it from the fringe. We had the one, Dark Lord of the Sith that James Lucina wrote, which is right after. But for the most part, it's an unexplored, or at least underexplored part of the timeline. So I'm really interested to see what we're going to do there. I am all in on this crew a lot more than I was after the one season arc, or the one arc in season 7 for Clone Wars. That to me was kind of like generic. I was kind of like, okay, this I'm in for now. This I want to know more. I want more. Give me more Wrecker. There's nobody I don't like. As I kind of like, I usually have an episode. I'm like, I don't like this character, but I'll see them through. I pretty much like everybody, even Omega, who I was a little bit. I was not. I guess hesitant is more the right word I'm thinking. Then I did not like her. I was kind of like, okay, this is the one that's not going to be for me. Now I'm getting her, and she's like, okay, I'm definitely interested. I'm definitely intrigued to see where she comes from, to see more about her origins and what her importance is going to be going forward. I think there's something for everybody, especially if she ends up being force sensitive. We got a little bit of force there potentially. We have the great Crosshair storyline with his mind. We got the definitely check-ins we're going to get in the galaxy. I think that's the thing I'm looking forward to most, is that while some people hate the cameos or the making the universe smaller, I love the idea of the check-ins we're going to get. We get check-in on Cut and Sue. At some point, we better check in with Hondo and Naka. At some point, we're going to get Fennec Shah. We know that. That's actually been revealed already. We're going to get check-in on that kind of character. I think we're eventually going to get Rex at some point. I think we're going to get a lot of different sides. So this is a way we can use the Bad Batch as a vehicle for us to go, okay, where are all of our favorites that we've seen so far during this time period? And it makes sense to me. So it's almost like an anthology to a degree, an anthology of the best of, so to speak. But that's what we're going to end with today, folks. Thank you so much for being on. John, tell the folks where they can find you.
That's just John Goetz on Twitch, John Goetz on Twitter. It's a surprisingly lowly taken name. So,
Matty, how about yourself?
You guys can find me here usually Sunday, on Scoundrels of the Force with PLD and Javi and Bador. John, thanks so much for coming on, dude. Like, when we were talking about guests, like I said, like, you were one of the first people. I was like, all right, we got to get John on. He's always in the chat, so we got to have him on. Dude knows his shit about Star Wars, so Thank you for coming on, dude. Where you can find me other than here, Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner, Clubhouse Matty Gunner, and twitch.tv/Matty Gunner TV.
Sweet. I will echo that as well. John, it was awesome to have you on. I appreciate you coming on. I don't think that'll be the last time. I think we'll definitely have to have you back on again. Maybe another episode of the Bad Batch as we move forward, and even beyond. We start going past the Bad Batch. I'm sure we'll get into some other stuff as well. We'll have you guest on. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me every week on Scoundrels of the Force here on PLD Projects, and eventually, when I get the time away from the FCL and other things, I will do my Queen show, which I'm going to do. I'm going to break that down, every song in the Queen catalog. And eventually I will. I've been promising this for like about a year and a half, 2 years now, but I will get to the Harris stance where I go through all of Ed Harris's movies. I will when I find the time. It's just been a busy time. So you can look forward to that, or look forward to taunting me about that and hazing me about that. That's fine. I'll take that too. But otherwise, you can find me on Action Industries, home Ben Baby and Andrew Guy. I program their weekend programming. Sometimes I appear on screen when they want my opinion on things. And also, I got the aforementioned FCL every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Schmodown Twitch channel. Our developmental league is kicking. We had our first Star Wars match last week for May the 4th. Did really well. We will have the Star Wars division come back probably mid-June, July. We're going to crown our singles champion first, but then we'll have the Star Wars and then eventually the IG as well. So I have a lot of questions to write for that. But that's it for now. You can say this next week on Scoundrels of the Force. We'll be definitely breaking down episode 3 at that point, and we shall go from there. But until then, may the Force be with you guys. Always.